Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. It is May 18th, and today's webinar is Beginning Record Keeping for Small Business. It will be presented by Mark Thompson. My name is Alyssa Atkins, and I am the Training and Development Coordinator for the Native Learning Center, and today I will be your webinar facilitator. A quick disclaimer before we get started. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. Also, today's webinar is also being recorded. If you look at the top of your screen, you will see an icon of either a person with their hand raised or just a hand. With that icon, you can either raise hand, agree, disagree, or step away. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic here. To the bottom left, you will see a box that says Files. Here you will find today's presentation. Please feel free to download a copy for yourself. Simply click the item you would like to download, then click the arrow pointing downwards, and you will be prompted to save or print the materials based on your device's permissions. The second box that states Web Links to houses today's surveys, as well as any other links that are found throughout the presentation. Lastly, to the right of the screen, we have a chat box available. This is how you will communicate to an instructor and NLC staff. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to interact by using the chat box. Simply type your message and hit enter or click that up arrow icon button to submit. Tech support issues should also be submitted here. And it is with a pleasure that I now introduce Mark Thompson.
All right, thank you, Wista. Hello, everybody. Alito. Good morning, good afternoon on the East Coast, and good morning to my west. I'm out here in California. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm going to share my screen, and thank you, Wista, for giving me the power to do that here. And let me get my presentation up. I hope everybody is in the right location. This webinar is record keeping for small business. Not the most fun topic. I know a lot of people are like, this is not like a real exciting thing that most people would look forward to. However, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to be energetic and keep it fun. And we'll just talk about, hopefully get you guys all squared away when it comes to record keeping. Let's just quickly go through just who we are. We've been doing several webinars for the Native Learning Center in the past a month or two. And so you've probably seen us before, or at least seen the email advertising one of our classes if you haven't been to them before. But I'm with an organization called Indian Dispute Resolution Services. And we have a program called the IDRS Acorn Project. And basically what our organization does dispute resolution, but the Acorn Project is specifically focused on small business development. And that's basically what our organization does. We do free training, free technical assistance, helping entrepreneurs like you, start and grow their small business in Indian country. Our website for the IDRS Acorn Project is nativebiz.org. And that's my email, mark@idrsinc.org. And if you just take off everything from the app before, so you go idrsinc.org, if you go to that website, you'll actually get our website for our organization. And that's forward facing to our tribal clients, because that's where we do a lot of our dispute resolution services. And the nativebiz.org is forward facing for our small business development clients, the individual entrepreneurs. And we have information up there about training and other good stuff like that. So just wanted to give you a kind of a little introduction about who we are, who I am. I'm the executive director. I've been here for a number of years. Our organization is located in Plymouth, but we're actually all over the country. Lynn's on the call today. She's just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have folks down in Arizona on the Navajo Nation. And we have folks all over the place that work with us as contractors. So so we're all over the place, and we're glad that you could join us from wherever you guys are today. If you guys want to reach out to me, please feel free. Any questions, we're more than happy to talk and answer them. And so once again, there's my email address, mark@idrsinc.org. Okay, let's hop into the presentation. So we're here for record keeping. So what is this presentation about? Why are we doing this? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why we're doing record keeping, some important concepts of record keeping, what it is, why it's important to do, which records that you're going to keep. We're going to talk. Oh, sorry about that. I guess they wanted to make sure I was virus free there. Okay, hopefully that's gone or will disappear. We also want to know actually how we keep these records, what are different systems that we could do, and then what are we going to get out of this records. I may talk a little bit about federal income taxes because one of the reasons a lot of people keep records is so they can report the information on their financial information on the Schedule C at the end of the year. And so, I might bring up a Schedule C and talk a little bit about that, but don't know if we'll have enough time for that today. What is record keeping? If we just looked at a dictionary definition of what record keeping is, it would be the orderly and disciplined practice of keeping business records. And so these records are used to report, operate, make decisions on your business, right? So we just talked about reporting. That's reporting when you're filing your taxes, right? You're reporting to the IRS how much revenue that you had, how your sales, how much money you brought in, how many expenses you had, or how much was the amount of expenses that you had, right? That's the money going out for the business. And then, of course, if you're a sole proprietor, you file a tax document called the Schedule C that goes on your 1040, and you're reporting all kinds of other stuff that's in your personal life on your 1040, right? So that's one way we're seeing that record keeping are being used to report. We also use things, to operate, right? If I'm keeping records on, how, what are the different products that I sell, and I see that one product is selling a lot, okay, I may shift some of my resources in to selling more or buying more of that product, keeping that more on hand, right? That's operations, right? How we run the business. And then we could also and we that's something that you're doing today, but we could also be looking in the future as well in doing planning. And so we see, okay, it looks like products like X or this kind of widget is slowing down. Okay, so I'm going to plan for next year. Maybe I want to I want to buy less of those widgets, but I see this, or I believe that this trend's going to be hotter in the market. I can buy more of those, and then and then if we're looking at financial, we can kind of, put all that in a spreadsheet and kind of see, okay, is this going to make us money? And we could project out, and we do, and all that's made easier by keeping records to begin with, and keeping good records. I think that's also one of the emphasis I'm going to talk about in this class, is that we want to make sure that we're doing and keeping good records. So for the folks online, what I'd like you guys to do is just put in the chat box, what are some different records? So let's say you own a small business. What are some different records that you might keep? And it doesn't matter what type of small business, because I think for a lot of small businesses, they're keeping the same type of records. So what are some different records that you guys might keep? Just throw them in the chat box. Okay, I see people typing, and it's always awkward when we have silence. I'm one that likes to fill the silence. So, okay, so Lydia just mentioned sales expenses, right? Of course, that's crucial, right? That's going to give us information not only for taxes, but that's going to sales and expenses is going to allow us to prepare our profit and loss statement. Alicia meant legal service agreements. Even though that's not a financial document, and we're talking a lot about financial records in this class, there's other records that you're going to want to be keeping, right? And so, and legal documents are going to be one of those. Contracts, any type of government document that might be sent to you, whether that's a property tax statement, could be a number of things. So Lydia mentions purchases. So purchases could be within expenses, but it could also be something like inventory. And inventory goes, we're not going to really talk about financial statements in this class, but in financial statements, if you look at a profit and loss and you're a retail business, what you'll have is a line item called the cost of goods sold. That's oftentimes can be referred to also as purchases, because you're purchasing items for resale. So, so definitely you want to keep good records anytime you're maintaining an inventory. And I don't want to get too deep or too off in the weeds, but there's often at times really good reasons to keep track of inventory, not only because of course you want to know how much you made, right? Not only so you can see what items are selling, but when you go to file taxes, if you're filing taxes accurately, the federal government requires with inventory to be kept in a different manner than potentially other financial records. And so, like I said, this is not an accounting class, but there's two major forms of the way you keep books, either the cash basis or the accrual basis. And the IRS requires that you keep inventory on the accrual basis. And that's really you're only able to do that if you keep good record keeping. And oftentimes you're even going to want a computer-based system. So Nancy mentioned rental receipts, inventory, gross receipts, booth fees, business certifications. I think that's good. Credit card fees. I'm seeing a lot of financial records, and I think those are good. Those are very important things to keep track of, to keep a good system going. But one of the things that I would also suggest to you, maybe I'll change the slide here because I'll have this because I think I have. Let me see if I have it. I have it in the next slide, so I'll talk about what my suggestion is in the next slide. When we come to it in just a moment. But thank you very much for everybody's responses. So a lot of what you guys have typed in there is here on this slide, right? So, so this is why is record keeping important to do, reporting to governmental bodies. We've talked a lot about we've talked a lot about in reporting to the IRS, and a lot of what you guys have mentioned are these financial records that go into preparing these documents, right? For income taxes, state and federal, right? So for there, you're keeping track of basically all your financial transactions, right? That's going to be your sales, your expenses, your inventory, right? If you're having sales taxes, we train in some states like Oregon that doesn't have a sales tax, but in other states like here in California, we have a sales tax. And if you're selling off res, right? So if you're selling on res, there's different sales tax rules, but off res, you're supposed to collect sales tax when you're selling a physical, tangible good, right? And so that means you're going to have to keep accurate records of the sales, and not only of what you sold, right? Because they're going to want to know a dollar amount of what you sold, right? And then you're going to have a certain sales tax percentage on that, but you're also going to want to keep a record of where you sell it, because sales tax rates change depending on the jurisdiction that you're located in. So if you're located here so I'm just outside of Sacramento in a county, Amador County is the county I'm in. The sales tax rate is 7.25%, which is the state sales tax rate. And then we have a half of a percent district tax, right? So here in Amador County, when you purchase tangible good, it's 7.75%. Whereas if you go just north of this county, you go to El Dorado County, if you were selling something there they don't have that district tax. So in El Dorado County, you're only paying 7.25%. And so you can see it can get very complicated, right, when you're doing sales. That's why some people don't even they don't keep records in the business, and they keep it very small because it can get very complicated. But as you grow, these are very important, not only just information on reporting, but what we're also trying to do is we're also trying to keep your business from getting in trouble, right? We want to comply with the federal, state, local, tribal laws, right? Because your tribe may, if you're selling on res, they may also have rules. I know in Nevada, some of the tribes that we work with, they'll actually have a seller's permit specifically for that tribe, and you're to collect sales tax and remit it to the tribal government. But once again, there's different rules depending on who you're selling to. So tribal members are tax exempt, whereas for a non-tribal member, you have to collect sales tax for that person. So you could see how record keeping can play a very important role when you're doing all of these things, right? Payroll taxes, right? So if you have employees, that's very big. Licenses and permits. So regulatory thing. One of the things I was thinking with regulatory, when you don't think of it, but here's one of those non-financial records. There's a guy that used to go to my church, or I used to go to his church, and he was a pest guy. And he would goes around and goes to people's houses and would spray pesticides. For him to keep his license, he actually has to report to the California State Department of Pesticides what he's spraying. They keep records of all those things. So he had to keep orderly records and write down in a log all the different pesticides that he's using. And so you might actually have that depending on the type of business you have. Not every business will have those type of rules or things that you need to keep, but a lot of businesses do, and they're different for every business. So for your business, you're probably not keeping records of the pesticides that you have sprayed, right? Because you don't spray pesticides. But if you use your vehicle, your personal vehicle, and you're using it to go make deliveries, or you're using it in some other way within the business, technically, according to the IRS, you're supposed to keep a mileage log, right? And so if you're ever audited, you can demonstrate that these miles were actually used for the business and the balance was not. So you can see, even if you're just using your vehicle in your business, there's a reason to keep records. So just quickly, reporting to service providers, insurance, like with workers' comp, they need to know our payroll, right? So we have to keep accurate payroll records so we can pay the accurate percentage of workers' comp insurance. If you're doing grants, right? The grant organization, they're going to want to know financial data, but they may want to know other data about the number of clients you serve. I'm actually preparing a grant. It's due today at 2 p.m., 4:59 p.m. Eastern time. And so it's definitely on my mind. And one of the things that we're having to report on there is how many clients we've served, right? So you can see, even as a nonprofit, we have to keep those records and provide those when we're applying for grants, and then also as we're doing our quarterly reports for grants, right? And so even, so if you're running a nonprofit working within a tribe that's getting a federal, state, or other types of grants, you might have to keep some of those same records. And then so also, and what I wanted to mention is down there in the second major bullet point under business operations, keeping track of things like customers. That's one of the things nobody mentioned, customers, in all the different in all the different chats that went on. But in doing your business operations, right, and running a good business, keeping track of customers, very important, right? Email addresses. If you're a salesperson, you may want to keep, and you're making, like, not when I say door to door, what I mean, you're making in person, you're doing direct sales, you're going and you're actually talking to potential clients. How great it is to have kind of like a file that would have information about when that person's birthday is, what's their children's names. The reason why salespeople do that is because then those customers or potential customers are more likely to look on you favorably, right? And so you can try to do it all in your brain, and some people have the mental capacity to do that. I'm not one that has that. So it's really good to be able to keep all of the those all of that data in something, and something that you can easily access, right? If you're going to a meeting with somebody, um, being able to go and pull up the record before you go into that meeting is going to be very valuable. But what if you don't even have time to pull up the record? If you have something organized, maybe you even have something on the phone that you can, oh, while somebody surprises you, you could surreptitiously look at your phone and be able to bring up information, right? And you don't have to remember everything. I just Don just asked a question, so I'm just going to answer it. It asked about a mileage log. I really don't have a recommendation on a mileage log because I don't keep a mileage log to be honest with you. But I do know there's a lot of apps on your phone, so that's one of the easiest ways that I would say to do a mileage log is to have an app, because your phone is normally with you, right? If you can remember to do that. Another way is if you're using one vehicle for business, to keep a log in the glove compartment, right? If you remember to pull that out, that's just having a notebook in there, right? And being able to write down, hey, I started here, right? Sometimes that works best because that's always there. And and I'll show, I actually have a little mileage log that I'm going to demonstrate a little bit later, but that may be a little bit more cumbersome because it's out of the car, but it gives you the basics of what a mileage log looks like. So I don't have one but there's a number of ways out there that you can keep a mileage log, and there's just a couple of suggestions. Um, so so why else is a record keeping important to do, and what other records are we keeping, right? Business planning, right? Products. One of the things I was thinking, we do a lot of work with farmers. We would partner with an organization, Talani Lake Enterprises, on the Navajo Nation, and their organization primarily serves farmers on Navajo. And they, so if you're there training a farmer, is a farmer just keeping financial records? No, they have their own specific records that they need to keep for their business, right? So they're going to want to know things like when they planted, right? They may want to know their water use. They may be doing different tests to say, okay, hey, I planted at this time, the weather was this, I put this much water on it, and then being able to even measure the crops that they're growing and what the results were based on the tests that they do, right? So you can see even when you're doing your work within your business, you may be doing these little experiments, and it's good to keep records of that as well. So Anthony mentioned, regarding customer details in small businesses, are there legal restrictions on what data can be kept recorded? Personal versus general demographic information. Anthony, I don't know that answer. One thing I know right off the top that may be illegal is voice recordings, right? And so I know we're really talking about stuff that we would type in, but if you wanted to keep voice recordings, I know that in some states that if what they call a two-party versus a one-party state. So in a one-party state, only you need to know that that call is recorded. In a two-party state, you have to notify the person that you're speaking to that you're recording. That's both for a call or a conversation. So that's one of the things. If let's say you wanted to keep calls because there's a lot of information in the call. Maybe you're on a board meeting or some other business meeting, and you want to keep those records, and you're keeping them in some sort of system so that you can refer back to them for whatever the business reason is. That may be one issue where you're technically violating the law if you're keeping those, and when the other people on the line did not know about being recorded. As far as what information that's typed in, I don't really know of any restrictions. and really, I think there would be. I think there would be two things to consider is how the information was gathered, right? So if somebody tells you information, they've essentially what they've called in the legal world would be called published it, right? They've told you what it is. So there shouldn't be any rules. Don't quote me on that. I don't, I did go to law school, but I don't practice. So, but I don't believe that there would be an issue with that. And then the flip side would be how the information is used. There may be some legal issues if you tried to harass people or tried to blackmail people, if you had information like that. But as far as just maintaining the information, especially if you're maintaining it for your own business purposes and you're not releasing that information, I don't believe there would be an issue with that. Okay. So, and one thing I wanted to mention down below is, what I always try to do with these presentations, because I know not everybody has a business started, or maybe they're thinking about a business, but that may be something on the future. Maybe they're waiting until they retire or their kids leave the house. Um, Keeping records is also very important, even in running your household, right? There's lots of different things that you may be able to keep. Just like we were talking about that farmer, you may have a garden, right? And you may want to keep a lot of those same records, right? There may be lists that you need, shopping lists, what's in the cabinet, all, so keeping records. And if you become a master of keeping good records and learning how to store stuff and things like that, that's going to be, you're going to be all the better for it, right? And I think you'll find that there's lots of ways that you can use good record keeping skills, both in your personal life and in your business. I was just thinking, just even with household management, photos, right? We have so many photos, and of course, with smartphones, before we may have had a camera and we had photos in a shoebox. Now you get these photos, and you may be able to take thousands of photos I was gonna say in a month, in a week, in a day, right? You could just be clicking. How do you keep all those? How do you find those photos that you want when it's time, right? And do you have systems for that? So, and where do you store those? Because not only we're going to talk a little bit later just mentioning record retention, how long you're keeping financial data, but also thinking about things like backup and storage, right? Because one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to lose important data that you have stored. You've got all these records, you keep the records, you don't want to lose those. You want to have backups for those as well. And we'll mention some strategies for that as well. Okay. So now, and so I mentioned before, lots of different records that you could keep in your business. And so now we're going to, but in this class, we're really going to be focusing on financial record keeping. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about, what goes into the records that you're keeping when it comes to running the finances of your business. Right. And just like we mentioned before, right. If you're running manufacturing, there may be things on how long it takes to get, produce a product. And actually, that's one of the things that we work with a lot of native artists, right? And that's one of the things I always encourage folks. Like, let's say we have a bead worker and they're making earrings, right? You should know how long it takes you to actually put that pair of earrings together, right? That's your manufacturing time and the processes in making the earring, right? You're a manufacturer essentially, right? And what you're going to want to do, and the reason why you want to keep that information is because you want to make sure that you're adequately compensating yourself when you set the price for those earrings. So if you put together a beautiful pair of earrings, right? And the materials that went into the earrings only cost, let's say, $5. And so you sell those earrings for $20, and you may say, hey, great, I made $15, I made a great profit. However, if you go back and you look at how long it took you to make that pair of earrings, and I apologize, I'm not a beater, so I apologize if this sounds wildly crazy, but if you spent 3 hours making that set of earrings, right? Maybe you're just beginning, right? And you spent 3 hours making those earrings. Well, actually, how much did you make per hour, right? Your profit was $15, but if you calculate your time, you only made $5 an hour, right? You could have gone and got a minimum wage job anywhere in this country. And, it may not have been as fun as beading, right? Maybe you're able to bead while you're watching your kids. There's other benefits in the way you may be running your business. But if you're looking at just the financial opportunity cost, so if you said, hey, I want to make the most money, you could have made more money, and a lot more money, just working a minimum wage job, right? So you really want to be thinking about that, because I'm just talking about the time in making the earrings, right? But there was time that it cost to acquire the supplies for that, for those earrings. There's time to actually sell those earrings, right? So you really have to be thinking about that, because there's a lot of time that we put into their business, and we want to make sure that we're adequately compensated. But if we're just looking at financial records, and so now we're going to build some sort of financial record keeping system, right? And how we get that information into our system. One of the things is, and I'll show you a picture a little bit later of some of the records that I keep, is receipts, right? And so one of the things that I do anytime that I get receipts, I just put them in a box, and you'll see my receipt box in just a little bit. I got gas earlier today when I took my kids to school, and there was I signed up, and now at the gas station they're sending me the receipts on my phone, and I was wondering, why are they not printing out? And I guess now with that card, they're going to send it to me an email. Sometimes that's nice, but I like to have both, right? I like to have the physical receipt so I can enter it into my system. But then if I don't have that receipt, I lost it or it didn't print out, then I can go to the system. And now I'm kind of bummed, because it looks like it's always going to be online, and that's a pain to get. But if you get, so I always say save your receipts if you can. It makes creating your financial record keeping system a lot easier. If you create invoices, and generally, if folks are creating invoices, they're doing it using some sort of computer-based accounting system. But if you're not doing that, or like you're creating them on Word, right? Because Microsoft Word has templates. Google Docs, if you're using Google Docs, they have templates to create an invoice. Or maybe you're even handwriting invoices. You're going to want to keep all those records. People that send you checks, right? You're going to want to, at least, even if you don't, you want to destroy the check for safety, you want to keep the information off of that check. When the check was written, how much it was written, what the check was for, right? And so in case anybody says, hey, I paid for that, you can go back in your records and say, well, no, actually, you sent this, and this was paid this over here, right? So even a lot of times, and I'll mention multiple times during this presentation, we talk about computer-based accounting systems, right? And when I mention computer-based accounting, I'm mentioning things like QuickBooks, right? QuickBooks is the dominant player in that market. But, so that's why those things are so valuable, because, you can see when you're doing everything like with a paper-based system, there's a lot of room for error that comes in, right? So as much paper as you can keep, those receipts, those copies of checks, those invoices, right? You want to keep that stuff, because that's going to really help make your financial record keeping system, a lot better, a lot more robust. Bank and credit card statements, those are going to be very valuable, especially if you've chosen to get a bank or a credit card that's specific for your business, right? A lot of people, and I'm guilty of this as well. My wife does horse boarding. And she's got we live out in the country, and she boards horses for a few people, right? And so and anytime she needs to buy hay, a lot of times she's buying hay on our credit card, right? And we buy other stuff on, groceries on the credit card as well. So I have to go through there and identify all of those different receipts. So those purchases that are specifically for the business, because we don't want to pay taxes on that. We want to be able to deduct that. So when you have a card and you're doing both personal and business stuff on the card, it makes it a lot more difficult. It's much easier if you can go and get a business bank account, and get a business credit card. And the credit card, and I'm not even recommending getting a card that's specifically a business credit card, right? There's certain, different business credit cards, maybe that you have to pay the balance in full at the end of the month. I'm not talking about that. The card could be a personal credit card, but what I'm meaning is that you only charge business expenses to the card. So you should, ideally have a card that's for personal charges, and then you have at least one business, at least one credit card that's for business charges. That just makes it easy, because then when you run your statement, even if you don't want to go through your personal credit card, you can pull up that business credit card, and you're going to know every single thing on that sheet is a business expense. It makes it much easier, especially at tax time. And I believe this is true. I believe that credit card statements, and easily identifiable charge, like let's say, you pay AT&T or something like that, Verizon, you're paying for your phone bill. That is a valid receipt. You don't need to have other documentation. Just having those credit card statements, in case you were ever audited, those should suffice. Please check with a tax person. I'm not giving legal advice, but I believe that that is the case. If you issue 1099s, obviously things that you want to do in cash, and that's going back to the cash transaction, going back to receipts, right? But somebody may pay you in cash. You don't even write a receipt. May be good to have a little book where you have, even if you're not giving the receipt to the person that gave you cash, maybe you have a little cash logbook that things come in. And, a lot of times in businesses, they have a little, they'll have a little petty cash box, right? And when cash comes in, they'll make a little notation, right? And then when cash goes out, you got to make sure that a receipt goes in there so that it balances. Or you got to have a little notepad in there so that you notate why you spent that money, right? You can see it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to get a computerized system to manage your petty cash box, right? But you do want to have something in there so that it balances, and so the money just doesn't disappear. Or if you're doing a lot of cash sales, you got a whole bunch of cash in here and you don't know what you got the cash for. So I think those are all important reasons, and those are all good records to keep. So some questions as you're designing your record keeping system. What is your goal? And I think this is very important, because it's very easy, as somebody that I've done accounting for many years. I do accounting for the nonprofit. I do accounting for, obviously, my own personal businesses. I do accounting for other people's businesses as well, do a little bookkeeping on the side. It's very easy for me to come in here and say, get QuickBooks. But QuickBooks is not right for a lot of people, mainly because it's complicated. And you can do the basic stuff in QuickBooks, but a lot of stuff, when you're doing things like reconciliations, you're having to make journal entries. Those require a little bit more sophistication, and a little more sophistication than a lot of people want to do, right? And what ends up happening is, when it gets to be hard, a lot of people shy away from doing the bookkeeping or record keeping at all, right? And that's what we don't want you to do. So what is the goal? If you don't need something to be very complicated, you just want to know, hey, how much I made this month. Maybe you're going to need some of these more simple methods that we're going to talk about in just a minute, right? If you have something where you have a store and you have a bunch of items that you're selling, you have some sort of inventory, I'm going to probably advise you go to some sort of computer-based accounting, because that's going to save you a lot of headaches, right? And trying to write that down on paper, and also, adding all that up, right? It's very easy to make math mistakes and things like that. So, so make sure you got your goal in mind, right? So I'm not recommending everybody go get QuickBooks. If you're selling your beadwork, you're only selling it on Facebook or something like that. Okay, hey, let's see. how we can keep some records that just get you by and make it easier, make sure you're getting all your expenses taken care of. You know, versus if you have something very complicated, let's start talking about moving to a computer-based accounting system. You know, what pieces of information do I need to accomplish that goal, right? So if we have a goal, it's really a lot of those pieces that we just talked about, right? So even if I'm not going to be doing a computer-based accounting system, I still want to know what my expenses were, right? So I may need a box that I hold all my receipts in, right? So you got to get a box. You got to make sure that the receipts get in the box, right? And one of the things is you got to make sure you're getting receipts. So many people, you know, when you go and you buy something, oh, you know, do you need the receipt? Nah, I don't need it. Right. Or sometimes the checker, because everybody's saying, I don't need the receipt, he doesn't even ask you, you know, do you want the receipt? So it's important that you're getting those receipts, especially if you're paying with cash, because with cash, if you've spent the cash, now it's up to your memory, right? Oh, how much money did I spend today? Right. And it's okay to estimate. A lot of people do that on their taxes. The real issue with estimation is that if you ever get audited, that estimation is going to be a real problem when the IRS, you know, comes knocking at your door. For most people, it's never going to be an issue, right? So estimating is better than not estimating. But when the IRS actually comes and visits you, you're going to want to have proof for that thing. That's why it's important to keep those receipts. So what pieces of information do you need to accomplish whatever goal you're doing? And where can I go find those things, right? So those are things as we're setting up. A couple other things, you know, actually, I want to go to this other slide. I'm going to come back to that slide. But one of the things I want to mention is as we're setting things up, things to be thinking about, right? We just mentioned it. If you have a simple business, start simple. And as your business grows, then get to more complicated methods of record keeping. Okay. And then, of course, you're thinking, of course, this is the goal of the system, the goal of the record keeping system that we just talked about. How detailed do they need to be? Be thinking about that before we start going. You know, and then we have all these considerations that we want to think about when we're doing the record keeping system. You know, how much is the cost, right? Getting a box and putting receipts in it, and then putting and then getting out the calculator, which you probably already have on your phone to begin with. You know, that's going to really cost nothing, right? That's a very inexpensive. Getting QuickBooks, especially if you're getting something like QuickBooks Online, where it could be as much as $70 a month, right? That's a really big investment every single month that you're so make sure that whatever your whatever level of record keeping system that you're doing, it's appropriate to the type of business, you know, both the size and the complication, but also the cost, right? Or you're not really doing a lot of the accounting, or you're letting other things, parts of your business go by the wayside, that can be a problem. So be thinking about it. And if you don't have a very complicated business, you know, maybe, you know, hey, you have maybe 10 sales a month, right? You only buy a couple $1,000s worth of expenses every single month. You know, that's something like keep it in a shoebox, you know, maybe pull it out once a month, maybe pull it out once a quarter and calculate it, because there's not a whole need to be doing this every single day. Whereas if you have, you know, thousands of transactions a month, you're going to want to be in that accounting system every single day, right? Whether it's you or most likely at this point, you're hired a bookkeeper to come in and do this, just because there's so many transactions you don't want to get behind. You'll never get caught up. And then, you know, garbage in and garbage out, right? So we want to make sure as whatever we're putting into our accounting system, it's good data, because if we're just putting in stuff, we're just guessing on stuff, or, you know, we got some receipts, but, you know, we don't have most of the receipts. So we're just writing down random numbers, right? We're really putting garbage into our system. And then when we go to prepare the numbers at the end of whatever the period is, and a lot of people are doing this because they're going to be preparing their tax returns, you're just not going to get what you need out of that system, right? So make sure that whatever you're putting in the record keeping system is coming out. Or whatever you're putting in is good, so that when it's time to get those reports out, they're going to be good. So I just went back here, and I just wanted to mention before we actually get into the systems, what are we trying to find out from these records, right? And so when we look at financial records, there's three major financial statements. There's the profit and loss statement, there's a balance sheet, and there's a cash flow projections. Most people don't do cash flow projections. I mean, it's important, but most people, I don't think, are at the point that they're going to run out of cash, and so they don't do it. Really, cash flow projections is important because you've heard the term cash is king. If you ever run out of cash, and what I mean by that is you run out of cash, but maybe you can't even get credit for whatever reason, right? Your business could be bankrupt. And so you always want to make sure that you have adequate cash on hand. And that's why you prepare a cash flow statement to know, how much cash, basically liquid assets you have on hand to operate your business. But primarily, I think a lot of people are preparing the two big I call the two bigger financial statements, and that's profit and loss and balance sheet. And most of the time, they're really doing a profit and loss only, because obviously with profit and loss, it's giving you a lot of information in your business, right? Even if you prepare a simple profit and loss statement, it's allowing you to make good business decisions, right? You can see, okay, am I profitable? Am I spending too much money in any one line item? If you're looking at actually, you have some sort of sales log, then you can actually see what products are selling. So those are a lot of key things that people need in their business to actually operate it. And then, of course, you're using that profit and loss statement when you're doing a Schedule C, right? If you're preparing a Schedule C, and there's other forms that if you're in different types of business, like I believe it's the 1195 if you're an LLC. And so, but you're putting the same information, how much money you made, your revenue and your expenses, and then you're getting to some profit or loss number. And then if it's on your Schedule C, that transfers over. If it's on that like 1195 document, you actually file what they call a K1, and then the K1 you attach that to your 1040. You can see how this can get complicated. This is why a lot of people hire people in doing financial statements and doing bookkeeping and doing taxes. But and so I don't expect you to remember, what are these different forms or anything. I'm just wanting you to get the basics of, this record keeping and why we're keeping records and what type of records that we're going to keep. And then you start building it from there. Okay, so Nancy had a question, making additional business loan payments out of personal income. How does that affect the business and personal income tax reporting? Oh boy, that's a difficult, when you get into accounting, you have to switch mindsets. So, and that may be something that we have to take offline, because I'm probably going to give you the wrong answer. Making additional business loan payments. So, there's, when you're making a business loan, when you're making a payment on a loan, right, there's principal and interest, right? So part of that's going towards the debt, so that's not non-deductible. And then the interest payment is deductible. But then you're asking about the personal side, right? And so I'm assuming, and it has effect. Well, with business, if you're making you're basically taking those interest payments as deductions. Now, maybe if you're making additional business loan payments, now if you're typically when you make an additional payment, that's 100% going to principal, so that would not be deducted. But and actually, as I start talking about this, I can start saying, boy, this is getting more and more complicated. Nancy, how about we take this offline? Once again, I'll put my email here in the box, in the chat box. You send me an email, I'd be more than happy to talk with you about that. I'll give you my opinion. You can explain a little bit further, and then we can go and I don't know if I'll be able to help you or not, but I can at least give you my 2 cents. And so, and Lydia, mentions correctly, right? Because it depends on how your business is set up. And it also goes to, there's other things uh, like a owner's, owner's equity, and there's, could be an investment. Depends on how you have your book set up. A lot of people don't have that real level of formality. So, when you're doing taxes, it might just be that you're taking those expenses, but we'll take offline because it can keep going. So in really what you're looking for though is, with the financial record keeping system, I think if we're really focusing on one thing, we're going to put together a profit and loss statement. We're going to find our income and we're going to find our expenses, right? Our income is how much did we bring in, right? Our revenue, our sales, and then our expenses, how much went out, right? And so those are the if we get one thing out of here today, it's really finding some different ways that we can find those numbers that will allow us to prepare our tax documents. Okay, so let's go through, because like you can see, I can get talking and there's so much to talk about, even with record keeping. You think it's boring, but there's a lot to talk about. So now I'm going to go in to a number of different methods, and these are just, these are things I've come up. I don't know if there's a scientific method, but one of the things I would say is a lot of people are going to use a combination of these methods. So I use the shoebox method in some of the things that I do, but then I switch and I also have computer-based accounting. So I have here kind of maybe a less sophisticated on the spectrum, and then I have something that's more sophisticated, right? So you'll see that you're going to take bits and pieces from each of these different systems to make it right for you. And so what is the shoebox method, or the typical way that the shoebox method is described? The shoebox method is really for people that may not do their taxes, or may not do accounting on a regular basis. So they're shoving everything, all their financial information into a shoebox. And then when it's tax time, they pull that shoebox out. Maybe they do it. Maybe they even take it to their bookkeeper, or they take it to a tax guy and say, here's the shoebox. It's all in there. Do my taxes for me. Right. That's kind of been kind of been the joke, but that's really what the shoebox method is. It's just keeping your records in some sort of box, right, until it's time to be able to pull them out and start, and calculate them, and calculating them and putting them in different, different line items. So what are some of the pros and cons? So for each of these systems, I have some pros and cons. So a pro, I'm going to give a pro for any one of these is that you're doing something, right? You're keeping records. And I apologize. I have a horse right outside my window. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's loud in my ear. Inexpensive, right? So very easy to start, very easy to set up, doesn't cost you anything, right? Anybody can do it, right? So what are some of the cons with the shoebox method? The shoebox method. I would say one of the biggest cons is that you're not current on data, right? So this is going back, if you're doing a lot of transactions. If you're doing a lot of transactions, right, and you really want to adjust in your business, if you don't have that data, that's going to really hinder you, right? Because that you have the data, but it's in a shoebox, right? And so you need to take it out of that shoebox. Hold on a second. I'm going to hide this. I just noticed that this is on the screen. There we go. I think that's a little better, so you can see all the words. But you're not having that data at the moments that you need it to manage your business. Eventually you'll get it, right? If you do it once a year, you'll eventually see how you did for the year. But maybe you could have made some adjustments to be more profitable during the year, and you're not going to have that because obviously you're only pulling out the shoebox once every year. And so that's one of the biggest cons, right? Other things, if you're doing this by hand, you're subject to mathematical errors, makes the end of the year could be time consuming. One other thing that maybe that I don't have up there that's popping into my head is that, doing the shoebox method, there may be things that don't get in the shoebox, right? Receipts you miss, just things you just don't put in there. And then because you're not doing it on a regular basis, you may never be able to go track that information down, right? Whereas if it's fresh in your head, let's say you do, even if you use the shoebox method, but at the end of the week, one of the things that you love more than anything is to go and fire up. I don't know what a popular TV. I'm gonna say Reservation Dogs, right? You fire up Reservation Dogs, sit there, and you do your accounting. If you do that, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh man, I don't see where this money went." There's a good opportunity there to remember it, right? If you only do that at the end of the year, it's going to be very hard to go back and remember. What did I spend that cash on? So that's one of the things about doing it on a more frequent basis, right? You don't lose that data. Okay. And then there's we call the shoebox method, but there's other types of boxes, right? You put them in accordion files. So there could be different ways that things look, right? You put things in accordion files because now you can sort it. And so you have a little bit more of a system that maybe you can go and look for things. File folders, maybe you have things, you have one filing cabinet that you put everything in. You may build something called a tickler system. And a tickler system, the reason that they use that term is, right, the system is tickling you, right, at different times. The way you set it up, you should set it up in a manner that you go back to it, and then things move in the system to always remind you. So you always have something that that's going to remind you of quarterly taxes. So you're not paying quarterly taxes today, but you have a system that I know every Friday I go and check this system to see what's in there that's coming up for the next week. Oh, the quarterly taxes still aren't due, so that goes right back in the file. I'll check that again next week when it's time, right? It could be, this could cover all kinds of different bills, different renewals that you may have. But it could also be in just operating your business, right? Not even just financial. Hey, I need to make callbacks to certain people. I told somebody that I could, that I would call them back in a month to see how they liked the job I was doing. Put that in a tickler tickler file, right? And you have the name, you have, it just may be on a sheet of paper, the name, the date you're supposed to call back, what you're supposed to ask. You got those details, so it's not up in your head. It goes in this file, and every Friday or every Monday, you check the file. Who do I got to call this week? And you pull that out. Okay. Oh, I don't call them for another 3 weeks. It goes right back in the file that you're going to check, right? And you can see how that's tickling you. You're getting in that method of checking on a regular basis, and those informations are there. So Lydia mentions she uses a large mailing envelope so receipts don't fall out, right? So that's one of the ways she does. I don't have video right now, but when I have checks that I need to store, I just have a 9x12 envelope. Everything goes in there for the year, right? And I could have multiple years in there of checks that I need to store. Pros and cons of other boxes. More organized than just the shoebox, right? Also fairly inexpensive, really easy to find items. But you have a lot of those same cons, especially if you're using financial data. Not up to date, subject to mathematical errors. Okay, so now we're going to move up a little bit in sophistication. Now we're getting stuff not just on receipts, but we're putting it in a notebook. Okay, so what we're doing is we're writing financial transactions down, and you'll see here in just a few minutes, I'm going to bring up some logs, and you can reduplicate these logs in a notebook, right? And so we mentioned earlier about a mileage log, right? And so that could be having just a simple notebook in your glove box. And so now you've already started a log, right? You go put a notebook in your glove box right now. You put, the date, where you went, the mileage start, the mileage end, right? Those are the columns that you make. All right, you're already doing the notebook method. You're doing the notebook method at least when it comes to tracking the mileage on your car, and if you're ever audited, those expenses you'll be able to justify on the use of your automobile. But there's a number of different reasons why you might do this, and sometimes it's just easier because maybe, like, let's say you're using like a computer-based accounting. You're using like a QuickBooks, and they don't have it set up the way you need it for whatever you're tracking. And yeah, you could go build a spreadsheet, but maybe the spreadsheet's hard and you don't really know. Sometimes it's just easier writing it in a notebook. So sometimes notebooks will be the simplest method, especially if it's just maybe, hey, it's going to take me 5 hours to create a spreadsheet the way I need it, but I can just pick up a notebook and start writing down the data, and that's good enough because my whole experiment's going to take 5 hours. So that's why I say you're going to really pick and choose depending on the most appropriate method for whatever you're doing, right? And so, but when you're looking at financial data, you're using the notebook method. What are some of the pros, right? So once again, you're more organized for the shoebox method. And so how might the shoebox method work with the notebook method? Maybe because you're probably not going to get a receipt. I drink a lot of coffee, right? And so when I'm on the road, I'm traveling for work, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, right? A lot of times I can find me a McDonald's. I'm always stopping and grabbing my coffee. And so, okay, I don't have my notebook, right? And so I can't write it down. I left my notebook at home. Okay, even if I brought my notebook with me, am I going to pull over to the side of the road and write it out right there? Probably not. I'm going. I got my coffee. I got to get there. I'm already running late. So, um, so maybe what we do is we have a little bit of a shoebox that we keep our receipts in, and then once again, at the end of the week, we take all those receipts out and we just categorize them into our notebook, right? So we're kind of combining things there, right? We got our receipts, but then we're writing things down. We're putting a little notation, kind of which line item. And the line item, when I say that, it's just which category they go under. So if you go to Shell, you get some gas. So what line item does that go under? That goes under gas, right? We go to McDonald's, I get some coffee. Okay, I don't have a line item for coffee, right? I probably have a line item for meals, but probably two different types of meals, right? I may have a meals and entertainment, which has limited deductibility, but then I may have a travel meals, right, which has different deductibility, right? I believe that one half of your travel meals that you can deduct for your business. So so you're keeping different things. You may want to know, okay, this meal was for travel, this wasn't for travel, right? So just those things. So it changes the deductibility of things. And so if you're using this record for taxes, you're going to want to know those things. And that's that is one of the things about the benefit of hiring a bookkeeper. Because even if you're doing a computer-based accounting system, but you're doing it yourself, you may not know the rules for some of these things, right? And if you're wanting to do it just by the book, it's hard to know all the tax code. The tax code is something like 3 inches thick, the size of the book, and it changes every year, right? So they don't make things easy for us. And then after we do that, we pulled out our shoebox. We've got our receipts. We've written it down on our notebook. Then we're going to do like Lydia, right? We're going to put them all in an envelope. We're going to mark that this is the receipts for this week, and those go into a box somewhere. Then in case we ever need those, or we need to refer to something, we have those receipts to go back to. So, easy to collect the data on there. You can reconcile it, so you don't have to go through all those receipts. It's right there. It's much easier. But one of the main problems that I see with the notebook method is it gets to be unwieldy. Oh, you make errors. You write out of line. Oh, I want to insert because I'm doing things in order. Oh, I got to draw arrows now. You're writing things in a pen. Oh, I'm scratching stuff out. It gets to be really, really messy. And if it gets to be too messy, you're not even going to be able to understand it. So that's a problem with the notebook method. So a step up from the notebook method, but very similar to what we could create on the notebook, right? Because we draw columns and stuff. We can do a lot of that stuff in a spreadsheet. And one of the cool things about a spreadsheet, because spreadsheet, you can make it do math for you. So you reduce a lot of those manual calculation errors, right? And of course, you're going to have to set up the spreadsheet correctly. I make spreadsheets all the time. I do all kinds of wrong calculations. I'm like, that doesn't make sense, and you got to go back and track it. So you do have those situations. However, if you do set it up correctly, and of course, a lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing addition, right? And if you guys ever done a spreadsheet, equals sum, and you put the range of cells that you want to put on there. I use that one all the time, right? Because that allows me to add add things in a column or on a row. And another nice thing about spreadsheets now, and I don't know how everybody feels about Google. I know some people don't like Google or too big, all this stuff, but Google has put something online. If you'll sign up for a Gmail account, you have access to a pretty robust spreadsheet. Obviously you got to have internet access, but the ability to have that and have it for free, you don't have to pay for a lot of the stuff, because before you may have needed to get Excel. Now there's some free software that a lot of people don't know about it. So like I have on there like LibreOffice Calc. There's another one, I think it's by Apache. It's called Open Office. Those are basically free software packages that allow you to create spreadsheets and things. But Google Sheets has made it really out in the open, totally free. So a lot of times now, I didn't do it today. I have some record keeping logs there that I'm going to show in just a minute. Normally what I'll do is I'll put those on Google Sheets. And so I am going to work on that to get those up there, because you may not have Excel. But one of the cool things about Google Sheets, another cool thing about Google Sheets, if you download that Excel spreadsheet, you can actually even upload that to Google Sheets. It can read it and it'll convert the data, and so that you can work within it. Okay, so spreadsheet method. What are the pros? Right, that math. If you're doing it on on Google Sheets, it's automatically backing up for you, right? So that's a key to from accounting for a while, right? You've done all this work. So
Mark,
the fact that if
you cut out for like a minute.
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
just a bit.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know what happened. Thank you for letting me know. I don't know if folks were hearing me talk about Wista. Do you know what I was talking about last? Did you hear anything I was talking about? I apologize to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. It dropped off like the last 30 seconds. Like as you were finishing your sentence, couldn't hear. I heard the last part of your sentence. I didn't hear the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So all I was just, I had mentioned that, I was trying to keep things in Google Sheets. It's one of the things we always try to distribute things in. And then I was going to say, so if you download that record keeping log, and you have Google Sheets, you'll be able to upload that. Then I was talking about, how spreadsheets can do the math for you, and how they back things up, right? If you're using Google Sheets, right, you have that automatic backup, so you don't lose all this work that you put into it. Whereas if you just did it on your computer, if you're not using a backup feature, that's going to be an issue. And so what I want to mention right now is that, another thing here, because I mentioned earlier when I was talking about photos, be also thinking about cloud software, right? And cloud storage. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with it, right? Big players, Dropbox, of course, Google, they have Google Drive. There's Microsoft. Now I'm going to even forget, just slipped my mind on what Microsoft's called here. I'm going to hit my little computer down here, and I'm going to see, let me see, what is that called? I see it here, but it's not showing me what it's called. But Microsoft has their cloud storage. as well. I use a Canadian company that's fairly inexpensive. It's called Sync. So that's, for our work, we use something called Box. So that not Dropbox, it's Box. All these things have very similar names. With Google Drive, if you're not storing a bunch of photos, you're not storing a bunch of videos, Google Drive is going to work for most people, right? And that's going to allow you. So I would recommend that if you're running like an Excel spreadsheet and you're putting a lot of financial data in that, maybe download Google Drive and make sure that that spreadsheet resides in the Google Drive folder. Because the reason why you're going to want that is if anything ever happened, right? You're going to want to make sure that if the computer, got destroyed, whatever happens, if that Google Drive is set up correctly, then it's just going to upload, and now you just get the new computer, you download that, and you're back in business, no problem. Because really, a lot of times, right? I'm one of these. I'm cheap. I'm super cheap. I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to spend the money in the computer. I don't want to pay for the cloud storage. But when you really think about what's our most valuable asset, it is really time, right? And so if you spent hundreds of hours inputting data into a spreadsheet, you do not want to lose those 100 hours, right? You can go buy a new computer, very hard to get those 100 hours back. And you can't get them back. That's really how life is. So, so protect your work as much as possible by having some cloud storage. So that's my little cloud storage speech. What are some cons with a spreadsheet, right? So we're going to move, as we're moving up in sophistication, we're also moving up in expense. Even though Google Sheets is free, now most of you guys, probably all of you, you have, if not a computer, you have a smartphone, right? Because how do I know that? You're viewing this presentation today, right? Of course, you could be on somebody else's, but for the most part, you guys all have that. One of the cool things about Google Sheets is you can use Google Sheets on your phone. I will say this, if you're doing business accounting, that's going to be a real pain, right? It's just going to be a pain working and trying to do things on your phone, right? It's so much nicer having a keyboard, but I don't even like using like the pad, on my laptop. I like a mouse. I guess I'm old school. I'm an old dude, right? So I want to have my mouse. I want to have my keyboard. It makes it so much faster to get that work done. So having a computer is going to help you with your record keeping system, right? So that's one of the things, right? So you got to have a computer. It's a little bit more of an expense. If you're going to use Google Sheets, yes, Google Sheets is free, but once again, you're going to have an internet connection, right? So we have a little bit more, expense. Of course, most people, I would say the vast majority of people do have a computer, and it doesn't have to be a powerful computer to run Google Sheets. So as long as they have a computer, and most people have internet, right? Because we're using internet for all kinds of stuff. So that's one of the cool things, right? We get internet. Yes, we get to get Google Sheets, but we also get to check out the internet. We also get to watch Netflix, right? And so so if we're getting that stuff, right, might as well take advantage of Google Sheets as well. Another thing is as well, it's going to make it, it's not a bad thing, but there is going to be a little bit more of a learning curve. If you've never used a spreadsheet before, and, I'll just open one up here on my computer. Give me 1 second. Let me go back here, and I'm just going to open up and pull up. I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet here. Let's see here. Just open a blank one. Okay. Here's a spreadsheet. If you've never used a spreadsheet before, this can be pretty daunting. Oh, I see a lot of boxes. What do I do there? Right. So, is a little bit of a learning curve building. Where do I put stuff? But after a while, you start doing it, you'll get the hang of it. Right. I mean, it's columns and rows, just like you would put in a notepad. Essentially, if you can, one of the first things I'd recommend is whatever you're putting in that notepad, rebuild that into the spreadsheet. You just use that notepad as your guide. That's a good first way to start. So, a little bit of a learning curve there. And then the last method is looking at accounting software. And, QuickBooks is the most dominant, I mean, by a wide margin. It's huge. I use desktop. I just prefer desktop. It's for me, it's a lot faster. Of course, I've used it for like literally 20 years, or more than 20 years, doing accounting. So, I mean, I'm all about a desktop. Now, just like we mentioned with cloud storage, there's a what they call a company file for QuickBooks, and I back that up, right? Because if I lost all that data, I don't even know what I'd do, right? So I'm always backing up my QuickBooks file in case something happens. QuickBooks also has an online version. My main issue with the online version is two things, right? If I don't have the internet, I can sit here, as long as my computer's on, I can sit here and do accounting all day if I have the desktop, right? I'm not backing up or that kind of stuff, but I don't need that, right? I do a lot of hand entry stuff. But and I know that QuickBooks does have some stuff that you can download and then it syncs, so there are some stuff. But if you have a purely online accounting system and your internet goes down, you're basically, you're out of luck. And if you need that to operate your business for whatever, becomes, I mean, not even just more than a pain, right? It could cost you money. So I personally use QuickBooks, but there's, one of the big things with QuickBooks, like I mentioned before, is the cost. And so if you come back on Tuesday, here's a little promo. I'll help Owista out. Here's a promo next Tuesday. I'll be doing another webinar. It's a separate webinar, but it's a kind of a continuation on the topic. We're going to talk about computer-based accounting, and we're going to look at QuickBooks, but we're going to look at some free options. And one of the big free options, if you can't come back, is Wave. And Wave, I think it's called Wave Apps, is the official. Wave Apps is a little bit simpler than QuickBooks, a little bit more approachable. Can't do everything that QuickBooks can do, but you know what? It's great for what it does. And for somebody that's doing no accounting and they're not running a big business, they're not running a retail store, Wave Apps can really do a lot for your business. So that's my plug. Come back on Tuesday. We'll learn more about it. There's also not just accounting software, right? We're talking about financial accounting, but we mentioned earlier tracking customers. Where do you track customers? Well, one of the things you can track customers in is what they call a CRM, all right? Customer Relationship Management software, right? Salesforce is the dominant player in the enterprise software. Enterprise software is like big companies, right? And Salesforce is a huge player, right? Huge. Everybody uses Salesforce. But there's a lot of smaller companies. I just mentioned Zoho. Right now, we're using a CRM from a company called Monday. So there's a number of different things, but HubSpot's another big one that's the kind of in small to medium businesses. But you can do, you can kind of build a little CRM system in a spreadsheet. That's the beauty of a spreadsheet, right? You can do a lot of those things in a spreadsheet. But if you wanted to upgrade, there's a lot of free CRMs that are out there. You don't have to pay. They won't give you all the functionality if you paid. But one of the key things is, hey, I'm keeping those records, right? I'm keeping touch of where my customers are. And the beauty of keeping a computerized CRM, right? I need to go look for this person. I could search that on my phone, right? So if I don't have my physical records with me, I can go search it on my phone, right? If I'm at home, I search it. Because if you have those in like written down in a notebook, or you have to make sure you have that notebook with you, right? Or you have to memorize it. So that's one of the cool things about some of these other and there's lots of specialty programs depending on what your industry is for your business. And there's probably record keeping systems that I know that we don't use it, but I know in the horse boarding world, there are horse boarding specific programs that, and I was going to say, how would that be different than like, some other type of record keeping software? Well, with the horse boarding, they're going to have things like to remind you to put in when's the last time you had the farrier or the horseshoer come out, right? When's the last time that the horse has gotten his shots. So, when's the last time he's had different checks from the vet? If he has special feed, right? Some horses, they eat hay, and there's different types of hay. Some horses eat only grain. There's different types of grain, right? And so you can see if you're just trying to run that like on QuickBooks, which does accounting, well, where do I put it? Where do I put in the special order for grain for this horse? Makes it very, you could try to make it work with customers and things like that. But it is a lot nicer if you can, have a program that's designed specifically for your industry. But you don't necessarily need that, and that's why like we use, we don't have that many horses. We just use spreadsheets, and it works for us, right? So what are the pros and cons of computer-based accounting? Powerful, right? You can get a program that can do anything if you know how to operate it, right? It's very complicated, right? That's that's on the con side. There's a learning curve, and depending on the complication of the program, is going to be a higher or more steeper learning curve, right? But you can store a ton of information. I should say no math errors, but no math errors are really what you put in, right? As long as you put the math, keep the math, the right information in there, the program is going to be accurate in what it calculates. If you're putting in a number of transactions, right? If I put in, let's say I'm reconciling my credit card, and all you're doing with reconciling is I'm making sure with the records that the credit card, provider and what I have in my computer-based accounting system match. That's what it means by reconciling, right? So what I'm doing is I'm taking the statement that they've sent me, and I'm comparing to the records and I have in my system, and I'm making sure that they match. And I may have to enter records and change things and that kind of stuff. So when I'm doing that reconciliation, I may put in 200 credit card transactions. Now, just imagine if I wrote those down in a notebook. What's the next thing I got to do? I got to get out my calculator. Well, what happens when my kid walks in midway through? Oh, I got to start over, right? Obviously, if you have computer-based accounting, all I do is I just run a report. It immediately gives it to me. Doesn't matter how many. Could be 200, could be 2,000. So that's the beauty, especially as you have more and more transactions moving to a computer-based system. But like with a lot of stuff, it's expensive. But like I said, there are some systems, especially for more simple accounting, uses. More simple businesses. Wave apps is there, and that is free. Makes it a lot easier having a computer. You can do a lot of stuff on your phone, but depending on your phone size and everything, hard to put those numbers in, and there's a learning curve, right? So I think I may have had this stuff out of order, but what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to show you a little bit of what my system is, and then just kind of talk a little bit about retention here in the last few minutes. So this is, I'm sorry for my messy closet, but this is my records right here. Up at the top, you can see there's my shoebox. Those are all my receipts. I'm glad it's clear because you get to actually see the receipts, right? And so when I'm getting receipts throughout the month, I'll just go right in that shoebox. Okay. So then what I do is I try to do this at the minimum every month. Sometimes I don't get it done, but what I'll do is I'll pull all those receipts out. I sort them by vendor. I use QuickBooks to not only do my business accounting, but I account for my personal, my personal thing as well. I run everything through my QuickBooks, right? I've been an accountant for a while. I know how to do all that stuff, right? So I don't expect most people to do that. It's a little anal retentive, so I apologize about that. But I do that. So I'll enter all those receipts, and I just sit here and I listen to my podcast. Doesn't take me hardly any time at all. And then when I'm done, I've put them all in. You'll see what it looks like in one of those envelopes, and you'll say I just pulled one out from March. I'll just put a paper clip on it, fold it in half, and it goes in that envelope. If I ever need to find anything, and I just stick those out in the garage, and eventually after a few years, haven't been audited or something, those just get, shredded or, burned or something like that. So that's a little bit. And so you can see my method. I got a little bit of the shoebox method. I'm keeping envelopes like Lydia does. I do a computer-based accounting, and then some of the stuff, I'm using spreadsheets, right? Because sometimes it's just so much faster to create a spreadsheet than trying to do something in QuickBooks. So I do a lot of stuff outside of QuickBooks in Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. It's my wife's business. I just do the accounting for it. So sometimes if I want her to give me information like on sales or different things that she has or how many horses she has, I'll build that spreadsheet in Google Sheets because then I can share it with her. And so she can do it on her computer. And then when she's doing it, I can see exactly what she's doing and I have that data. So you can see there's a use case for each of these things depending on what you're doing within the business. So what are we doing with these records? Okay, we've built our record keeping system. Now what are we doing? Well, one of the things we're doing when it comes to financial questions is we're answering, where's the money going? Do I have money right now, right? That's looking, okay, am I profitable? Do I have money in the bank, right? Your bank's going to be located on your balance sheet. Okay. Will I have money tomorrow, right? I'm planning into the future. If I don't have money, am I going to have to borrow money, right? And of course, what am I doing when I borrow money? I'm showing the banker my records so he can know that I'm a good credit risk and I'm likely to pay him back. And of course, at the end of the year, we're filling out our income tax liability. So, and this list could be endless, right? There's so many things that you can do with your record, right? Here's some more, right? We're preparing our financial statements. So that's when we get into accounting, that's a whole nother level, right? So I didn't want to bring that in, right? But if with any of these records, we can, prepare a profit and loss statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flows, or our Schedule C. And so I just real quickly, I wanted to do an example in my last few minutes. So, and this is what's in this IDRS sample record keeping. So down here in the lower left where it says files, the first is the PowerPoint that we're working through now, but then I created some of these sample record keeping logs, and I'm going to actually pull that up now. I went too far here. So, and you're going to see these are very simple, and so they're created in a spreadsheet, but they can also be done in a notebook as well, right? You don't need to have a computer to actually do this stuff. So here's like an income log, right? So I don't give out receipts. People pay me by cash. So maybe I'm just keeping a record of every time somebody pays me. I got the date, who paid me, what that transaction, why did they pay me, and how much they paid me, right? But very simple, right? And I just write that down, and maybe I have one of these for every month. And at the end of the month, then I can go and easily calculate how much money I made on the cash system, right? And cash is just the actual cash received. Okay, so same thing here for an expense log, right? Date I spent money, right? What did I spend that money for? Who did I give it to? How much did I spend? Okay. You can combine these, right? You don't have to have individual. Maybe you're not doing that many transactions. So here's this. Is it a customer or a vendor? The category, basically who did I receive money for? Who did I give money to? And is this an income or expense? And if it's income, then I know it's a customer. If it's an expense, then I know it's a vendor, right? Here's some mileage. Here's the mileage log, right? We just talked about before. This is something that you could create within a notebook and keep it in your car. You could also have it on your, like you keep the notebook in your car, so you write it down, and then maybe you want to calculate it. So you take the notebook out, bring it in the house, every so often, and you type in all those entries into a mileage log, and of course, this will calculate it automatically for you, right? When did I take my trip? Where did I go? Why did I go there? What was the odometer on the car start and how much did I finish, right? And then you could even do a formula, right? You could do a formula like this, you do an equals, and then you do take that sale and you hit minus that sale, right? Now that's going to calculate automatically when I enter that. You can see that's if you've never used spreadsheets, there's so many cool things that you can do within the spreadsheet if you learn some of the functions. Now this is a little bit more into accounting, but then you have things like T accounts. And T accounts basically, especially if you're doing it on paper. So when I first started doing accounting, they taught us on T accounts, right? So what you can do is if you have kind of a log, you can come in and on the left-hand side, or excuse me, the right hand on income, the right-hand side is going to be your sales, right? And then on the left-hand side is if you had to give any refunds. And most of you guys probably aren't giving refunds, so you're going to have everything on the income. Now, if you're doing it on a spreadsheet, right, like this, if I'm entering the stuff, it's calculating. So I sold 800, I sold 900, I sold 700, right? And you can see how easily that calculates. But on this log over here, let's say I'm just keeping a separate expense log. I can go through now and say, okay, I see all the different categories for a month. And it doesn't have to be a month. It depends on how, when this will get unwieldy. You want to do it before it gets unwieldy. And okay, I see one expense was for changing tires. So I got, 2 new tires on my car that cost $400, right? So that's an expense. I put that on the left side. I paid my insurance bill. That was $500 for the 6 months, and you can go down here. Okay. I got a refund over here in supplies. So I refunded something that's 60, and you can see that becomes a negative, right? Because I got a refund on something. And this is the beauty of the spreadsheet, right? It calculates it automatically for you. So that's a benefit. And then what I can do is take these T accounts, and then I can transfer them over here to a monthly profit and loss, right? And you can see each one of these logs that I'm keeping in my record system can build. So this is, even if you don't have a computer, you can take these and you could print these out, and you could do these on paper. Like, you don't even need this, right? You can make a T account, draw a T, write what account it's for, and then you can write all the purchases on the left-hand side, and then your refunds on the right-hand side, right? And of course, you add everything on the left-hand side, you subtract things on the right-hand side. And then you can transfer that. So right here, let's see if we go back to our T accounts, I have $400 in car expenses. So I can transfer that right here. Now, I will say one thing, I don't have it built in this system, but you could even have a spreadsheet like this that's built for the month, and you could just copy it every single month, and I could have it linked. So I put everything in, in that car expenses. I could have a whole bunch of, expenses here, and I could have this sale then be linked to this sale so that it transfers that information over automatically. And as I go and I work on my T accounts, it's automatically creating my profit and loss for me. And then you'll see I even have some math already built in, right? I'm adding up my expenses. I don't have any income set up, but if I did, let's say, let's put 800 up here. And then you'll see down here, it calculates a net profit, right? And net profit is your expense, your revenue minus your expenses. And then I have an annual ledger, right? Because one of the things that most people are trying to get to is to get to the Schedule C. And then you can add each of those expenses, and you could put them across the month, right? And all you'd be doing is transferring this data. But the spreadsheet is calculating it for you, so it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so I'm basically out of time. So the last thing I'm just gonna, Awista, if you just give me a couple more minutes, I just want to mention a few last things.
It's okay if you want to keep going. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to skip over anything. If you just want to continue, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I only have a couple more slides. And so one I want to mention is record retention. Very important to keep records for a certain amount of time, especially when it comes to taxes or other things when you're doing things like, we talked earlier about the pest control guy, right? You may need to keep those records for a little bit of time. So that's why I do, and so I just kind of, a lot of people, they recommend if you're doing taxes, keep them for 7 years, your actual tax return. Maybe you even keep that forever. You can see some of the things here that you might keep. This is a record retention policy that would be for a nonprofit, because most people wouldn't have auditor reports. But you want to keep some of these things you're going to have forever. Where do you keep things, right? And that's one of the things we mentioned. You can have things physical, but one of the things you might want to do is you might want to have cloud storage. And so if you need to keep a tax return, being able to scan that in and keep a PDF copy of that, you might want to find a way to protect it, right? Because you don't want prying eyes, don't want them to see your income, don't want to have access to your social security number. But but you protect it, but you get it up there, and then no matter what happens, that you always have that tax return. Your computer gets destroyed, house burns down, right? Pray that never happens, but if something bad like that happens, you at least have those records protected. Okay, so and then finally, the last thing I just want to mention is we've talked a lot here. There's a lot going on, right? I'm sure most of you would be totally fine to get started right now doing the shoebox, other type of box methods, creating the like using a notebook. Okay, maybe some of you may need a little help when you're doing the spreadsheets. Oh, you get into accounting. I'm going to start seeing some real issues. Okay, so where do you get help? There's many places that can help you. One place is a local bookkeeper. I used to be a bookkeeper where I would go into somebody's business and I would only go for an hour, maybe, or 2 hours a week. All I'm doing is they know enough of their system, their QuickBooks, right? That then I would just come in and I would do the reconciliation. I would correct their errors, right? So there are people that'll do that. Maybe you need somebody to get you set up the first time, and then you could take it from there. Don't, at least call. Maybe you don't want to spend the money right now, but at least call to see if that's possible. A lot of people, I don't think, I've heard this both, not only just with bookkeepers, but with lawyers, right? A lot of times, I don't want to call a lawyer. Lawyer's expensive. A lot of times lawyers will give you a free consultation. They're going to tell you how much they expect the case is going to be. They're going to tell you how much the retainer's going to be. You can say no, right? It's not like I call them, I'm obligated, right? They know about, that's why they give consultations, right? Because most people won't just pay up front. They want to get a little bit of information first. So make sure that you get a little bit of information in your business. It's going to help you out. Other places, the public library, so many training options that you can get free through the public library. LinkedIn Learning is there. A lot of places have Udemy now. And of course, everybody gets trained on YouTube. So go find that kind of stuff. Small business development programs like IDRSs, right? We're down there. I give you my email address, but there's a lot of programs like IDRS. I know people on this call are all over the country. Native CDFIs are out there, right? SCORE, that's Service Corps Retired Executives. The SBDC, that's the Small Business Development Centers. There's the WBC, that's the Women's Business Centers. There's something called a VBOC, that's the Veterans Business Opportunity Center. All kinds of these technical assistance programs. And then those are the ones that are like funded by the SBA, but there's a lot of independent ones and that are funded by counties that are just nonprofits. Seek out, there's a lot of people out there that will provide you assistance. You don't need to do this stuff alone. Okay. Even going and looking online and finding like a help group. So a lot of times I go on Facebook for help groups. There's things like that on Reddit. Even going to like, let's say I want to tackle Wave. What does Wave have on its website? Does it have tutorials and things like that? So, there's a lot of help out there. So that's one of the things I want to leave you with today is that, you may not have got a whole, you may not ready to start the record keeping process yet. I haven't convinced you, but if you are ready, but you're like, I would be doing this, except I'm stuck or I don't know where to go, please seek help. Send me an email, reach out to somebody else. but make sure that you reach out and you get going, because we want to make sure that your business, that you not only, if you're starting your business, that you get a good system in place when you start your business, but if you're already going, that you don't have a lot of trouble, right? And that your business thrives, and your business can really thrive when you know the information that's in your business, right? And it allows you to work, not just in your business, but work on your business. So with that, I am going to, I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Awista for her to launch the what do you call that? The survey, and close us out. Thank you very much, Awista.
Thank you, Mark. It was a wonderful webinar. I'm going to go ahead and launch the survey. The survey helps out Mark know what you guys like and what you don't like, and what he might be able to include in the next webinar. So please leave your suggestions for him. I did went ahead and put the link for his next webinar in the chat box, so please don't forget to register for that as well. Our next webinar is going to be May 23rd. Organize Your Businesses with Computer-Based Accounting. Is going to be presented by Mark Thompson, Executive Director of Indian Dispute Resolution Services. As always, registration is free. It will be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, and 11 a.m. Pacific. Please don't forget to register. And as always, please don't forget to leave any questions you would like for the next webinar in the survey. As always, you can access this webinar recording and any of our other recordings on our website, www.nativelearningcenter.com. We have a Cathedra webinars tab and a recorded webinars section. You can click on any one of the webinars that we have done for the past 18 months. Feel free to view them and share them with your friends and colleagues. Check out our upcoming events as well on our social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. We even have a podcast titled Hope Thing, a Native American Podcast. You can find that on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Mark, for a wonderful webinar. I hope everybody has a wonderful